very different from other strategy concepts, because this is not just a concept, it is actually a series of tools that gets you to implement and develop a strategy. It's the only proper tool that has come up in terms of coming up with a proper strategy in there. I think somebody's unmuted here. Okay, so let us start in terms of what is blue ocean strategy, which is really the contrary of red ocean strategy. So, sorry, I can get unmuted. Blue ocean strategy comes from, basically, was initially done 11 years or 12 years ago from a book called Blue Ocean Strategy itself, and then the second edition of the book called Blue Ocean Shift was released 2 years ago. It is research-based, comes by two persons, Chan Kim and Renee Morborn. And as I said, it's not just a strategy, not just a concept, it's a series of tools that have been done over time for you to be able to implement something. Now, the main basis of Blue Ocean strategy, which is very different from the rest, is not about creating your business. It's creating a new mindset where you do not compete anymore and you make competition become completely irrelevant. Competition, where everyone is competing against, is no more important because you're going to create a new market space. And it is also about focus, while also at the same time about lowering costs. Now, for those of you who have done a bit of literature review on strategy, you know that usually we have to make a choice between either focusing on a market niche or on differentiation or lowering costs. The Blue Ocean strategy is about getting everything together. So it's really shifting your concept from, usually what you do is you take all your revenues, you reduce all your costs, and you get your profits. And what you want to do is to change it from, you start with basically, this is the amount of revenue that you think you can get, this is the amount of profit. And based on that, what is the element of cost that you're ready to be able to spend, and how do you make it happen? Okay, so this is really very different in terms of thinking, because usually we take cost as a given, while in Blue Ocean strategy is not cost as a given, but it is how do we make the cost become the cheapest possible. Right, so let's dive into try to understand what it is. But before that, as I said, it is research-based, and what they found was out of 108 companies that they researched, they saw that 86% of new businesses that came out were what we know as Me Too strategies or value improvement. So basically taking a business model that exists and trying to make it better. Only 14% of new businesses that came in were very value innovators or industry disruptors. Out of the 86% of businesses that got launched, the amount of revenue that got generated by these 108 companies, 62% came from those 86% of companies. And that only generated 39% of the profits. If you look at the 14% of industry disruptors, the impact that they had on the bottom line was 61% of the total profits that got generated by those 108 companies. So it's really exponential in terms of how much you can actually contribute in terms of your benefit to the whole organization. So there seems to be a concern regarding, there seems to be a glitch regarding the presentation, because it seems that I think you might in 5 minutes. If it does, we'll just have to find something going on here. Okay, so we'll proceed, and if in the event that the meeting actually ends, I'll ask you all just to re-log in a second. Okay. So I'm just asking the host here, do you want us to all log off now and log in directly? as we have just said, the glitch is here. Because we'll have to log off anyway. Abo? You sure? Okay. Anyway, there seems to be a glitch because it seems that the presentation will end in 5 minutes. But we will sort that out. You'll get an email if you have to re-log in directly. Sorry about that. Okay, so let's go quickly in terms of the difference between the blue ocean and the red ocean. Now, the red ocean is about exploiting existing demand and making a trade-off, usually, between you have to either create more value or cut costs. But in a red ocean, it's also about you align your firm's activities with its strategic choice of either differentiation or costs. Now, as I said, blue ocean is something very different. It's about capturing new market. It's you get away from this choice of either value creation or a trade-off with differentiation or low cost. So if I can just explain to you very quickly in terms of what does the blue ocean strategy look like, it's basically where you've got, let's say, a few companies that are competing with each other. And they're competing with each other so much that they start fighting with each other, and then this ocean of competition. And in that ocean of competition, they start fighting with each other so much that the ocean around them, because they start fighting, becomes blood red. And they start competing, and the only thing that happens is that they start pulling everyone down. And that is the red ocean. Until a few companies look outside and say, well, you know what? There's a whole blue ocean out there. There are people, there are clients that we have not looked at. And why not just branch out and look for these people? Now, examples of blue ocean strategy would be so many, and I will not go one by one. We'll actually take it up in the actual seminar when we'll have it. But just to give you some examples of the Nintendo Wii. So the Nintendo Wii, when it came up, it targeted as people who would like to play on a console. Usually a console player would be teenagers or up to let's say 25 or 30 maximum. They aimed at people of an older generation, which was a completely blue ocean. Nobody was looking at them. And they went on things that are hand-holding, a pointing device, and they can actually play tennis like you're actually moving your hands. And with that, they captured a whole market, which was usually not seen as a traditional market. Coming closer to Mauritius, in the olden days, Rogers card, when the Rogers card got launched, at that time, the market that they aimed at, which was a mass market, was not traditionally seen as a market which were bankable. Adults take children to the circus and they feel bored at a circus. So what they did is they combined things from Broadway, they combined things from the circus, and eliminated the most expensive part of a circus, which was the animals. And so that's a circus without any animals, but has a combination of acrobacy and Broadway. And today, if you're actually looking for a seat in Cirque du Soleil, well, I would say excluding COVID times, you would have to wait some 3 to 6 months to get a ticket. So this is just to give you an example of how Blue Ocean actually works. Now, the actual Blue Ocean shift is not different from any other model. Get there. The difference is in getting the right set of tools. The difference is this whole step-by-step guide in terms of getting there. So very quickly, in terms of what are the guiding principles of Blue Ocean strategy. Now, I talked about reconstructing your market, but it's not just reconstructing your market. It's about reconstructing your market boundaries, finding out where else you could go. As I said, you want to focus on the non-customers. there are three types of non-customers. You've got a first non-customer who has taken a conscious decision, I don't want to be in that industry. Or you've got others that are soon to be, or others that are just on the side and are about to get in. So you need to decide on which non-customer to focus. And then based on that, it's reconstructing the market boundaries and finding out more about them. For that, you've got some interesting tools, and the most common and the most interesting one is about learning how to walk what we know as the 6 paths of Blue Ocean strategy. Now, the 6 paths of that is either the alternative industries, the strategic groups, the chain of buyers, complementary offerings, functional emotion, and trends of times. These are the things that we'll actually go through in the seminar, the 2-day seminar that we're running physically. But just quickly, when we talk about across industries, is when we look at a product, we often look at the competitors as a direct competitor. But in this case, we look at another industry that could be competing. An example is that you go to the restaurant with friends. Now, if we look at the competition of that restaurant, we may look at the next restaurant next door or another restaurant. Or we could go to the core of the actual demand, which is entertainment and spending time with friends. Then suddenly, the bowling alley becomes a competitor. The cinema hall becomes a competitor. So what you want to do is learn what is happening in those other industries and in what way are they competing and how can you actually shift there. The strategic groups is in every industry, you've got different tiers of strategic groups. For example, in the hotel industry, since I'm in a nice hotel here, the Holiday Inn, you've got different categories of hotels. You've got the one for the mass market, you've got, let's say, the 4 stars or the 5 stars. And the question is, what do you learn from those 4 stars that you could incorporate in the 3 stars while not increasing your costs? So for that to happen, you need to actually eliminate certain things that you're already doing to keep your costs at a certain level. The other one would be the chain of buyers. Too often when we're selling a product, we only concentrate on the buyer. We don't look at the influencer, or we don't look at actually the person who's going to use the product. We only look at the person who's disbursing the money. A typical example of that would be a car. So we look at the person who's buying the car. Very often the influencer could be the spouse, and the user could be the spouse, and the influencer could be the children. You need to be looking at all the 3 to understand how you need to position your product for that to sell better. The complementary offerings is also another path that you need to look at in terms of seeing any product is very seldomly used on its own, and it's usually used in complementary with something else. So the complementarity, if you manage to integrate that as part of your product offering, you can capture a market that would usually say, I'm not interested because I need to go to 2 different places to get the same product. If we go on, the functional versus emotional orientation is that certain products have got a much more emotional appeal and others a more functional appeal. And how do you disrupt the industry? By having an emotional appeal with something which is usually functional, or vice versa. An example where very often it's got wrong are cars again. The way that cars are sold, the advertising has a very much of an emotional appeal. However, when you actually ask for a quote for a car, the quote comes in a very functional quote, which is how fast the car goes, what are all the functionalities of the car, and you have little emotion that comes in the actual physical code that comes to you. So if you manage to walk the path, if it's an emotional path, walk it completely emotional or go completely functional, and you can see the disruption. The iPhone, the Mac, is another example of an emotional appeal. Now, I use an iPhone, and very often people ask me, why do you use an iPhone? And I have no answer for that. Because on a functional perspective, an Android, a Samsung, would be much better than an iPhone. However, you still use an iPhone purely on an emotional basis, and they have managed to capture that emotional part of things rather than a functional. And the last part are trends. So the obvious trend that is going on right now is the COVID. And when you're looking at any product, any business, any industry, the question that you ask yourself is, how would the COVID, how would the working from home, for example, disrupt everything? And when you start looking at the trends going forward, you can start to see what are new business lines that can open from there. I can go on and on in terms of the path, but you'll get to explore that better if you're joining us at the seminar. But just to tell you the end result, because it's very easy to say, we're going to have everything. We're going to create value, we're going to keep it at low cost, and we won't have to make a choice. How they do that is we need to concentrate on what are the things that you're ready to eliminate completely from your business. Most industries have things that over time have become expected maybe from that there, but it's not necessarily needed, and the client doesn't really need it, and we're ready to eliminate it completely. The example of Cirque du Soleil, where they eliminated the animals from the whole circus, where you would traditionally not think that you could eliminate an animal from a circus. What are the things that you want to do even more, raising? What are the things that you want to reduce in terms of your business model? Say, I will not put as much effort in there, or learning from the different paths, what are you ready to create? The tools that you create, that you use in here, have got various easy to use strategy maps, as we call it, or the strategy canvas, where you can easily see what you can eliminate, raise, reduce, or create, and what can you learn from other industries, and how do you superimpose things. It's a step-by-step guide, and how do you make things happen, which is really makes a whole difference. Now, what would happen in the actual seminar that we'll be running in 2 weeks' time? We would go more in depth on the various tools. We would learn how to walk the paths, but we would also want to take practical examples, and where we would ask you as a participant to come up with a new business model of a real product or service that you're offering. And by the end of the 2 days, you would want to have your own strategy canvas of the new way of looking at a business. For that, we will use all the various tools of the Blue Ocean strategy, which is the one that you see here, the 4 action framework, which is the ERRC grid, the strategy canvas, which is a very easy to use, a 1-pager visual way of looking at your strategy, which aims at your differentiating factors that you have compared to others, and other things like the 3 tiers of customers, or the settlers, pioneers, and migrators map. So we won't get into the technical details here, but this is what we want to be doing at the actual seminar. We will also be including things like a lean consumption framework, which is so really to get to the lean consumption framework, which is about how do you make your business process leaner from a customer's perspective. Too often we concentrate on the business rather than the customer, and there it is a new way of looking at the customer, and from totally their perspective, from their time frame and not the company's time frame. We will also be looking at your strategy canvas and your business canvas model. And by the end of the whole seminar, we would want you to have your strategy canvas of the way you want to go forward, and also your business model that you want to be taking forward. So it is combining various tools, including the Blue Ocean strategy, that we will really want to be giving you at the end of the seminar. So that's a very quick overview of Blue Ocean strategy and what we will want to cover at the seminar in 2 weeks' time. I'm now open to questions, and you can unmute yourself if you have got questions, or just send a chat right now. Okay, so since we don't have any questions, I'd like to invite you for the actual seminar that will be happening in 2 weeks' time, and where we'll actually cover the various tools that I talked about. So the Blue Ocean strategy tool. We'll talk about lean consumption, how you can look at things from a perspective of a customer, and finally, in terms of the strategy framework and your business model that we'll be looking at. So I really hope to see you in 2 weeks' time. And we are around for another 10 minutes if you would like to have any questions or send us directly your course. We have somebody else who's unmuted. Any questions from that person? Mauritius? No. Okay. Anyway, we are around, and if there's any questions, please feel free. Else, I hope to see you in 2 weeks' time.
Just like to say thanks to Roshan. And 2 points that I will add is the good news is we have already received the approval from HRDC. So you will be able to fill in your J1 and apply for HRDC refund. That you can get up to 70 or 75% when you are registering for the course. The course is of 3 days and it has been priced at 18,000 rupees, so 9,000 today. And lunch, food breaks, and your materials will be included in the price. Okay. Any questions? You can always reach to me on 54927032 or by sending an email to info@essentia.mu or my direct email, which is Coowar, Coowar @essentia.mu. And if you've got any questions for Roshan as well, you can send it to me and I'll forward it to Roshan so that he can get back to you regarding any questions about Blue Ocean strategy. I hope that this session has been useful. Thank you once again for attending.